as Nigerians grapple with harsh economic realities, economic decisions from the regulators of the economy, inclusive the government, tend to shape how market and money are pivotal in our everyday living. Welcome to Money and Market on TVM. This program discusses how the survival economy and the cost of living affects the everyday Nigerians. And I am your host, Fred O'Neill. All right. So today we'll be looking at the effects of the economic decisions on Nigerians. So we'll be looking at the appraisal of the market snapshot. In this first segment, we have 4 segments we'll be looking at the situation as it were. But for this segment, we'll be looking at the economic decisions as things are done by the government and the regulators to choose what to do about fuel, about tax, about interest rate, about the shape of which definitely shape the daily life of every Nigerian, including spending, how things are spent in the economy and stuff like that. But like I said earlier on, there's some factors that we'll be looking at in this particular area on the market appraisal. In this first segment, we'll be looking at food prices. Definitely, like I said, they are numerous. We're looking at income, jobs, and unemployment. There is the small businesses and market traders that we'll be looking at as well. There is the wages and purchasing power. These are very, very pivotal in this particular discussion. And by the way, we'll be taking this discussion really, really slow so that you can understand, so that even the ordinary Nigerian will understand what we are discussing. Now, another factor we'll be looking at will be on the health and education access, how the economic decisions affect this particular aspect. We'll look at transport, roads, and power, not also limiting poverty, inequality, and survival. Definitely will not run away from security and, of course, social stability. And then lastly, but not the least, will be trust, planning, and hope for the future. All these things that matters. But first off, let's look at the prices of goods, transport, and daily needs. Now, economic decisions have direct effect on how much one pays, how much you pay in the society. Now, remember, when this particular administration being led by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power, there was the issue of fuel subsidy removal. In fact, that was one of the first policy statements that was made by the president back then. And when we talk about fuel subsidy, though it's a controversial topic, some said there was a controversy about it. Some said there wasn't the removal, as it were. Some others, analysts said, yes, fuel subsidy have been removed. Now, we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty of explaining the fuel subsidy, as it were, but when the fuel subsidy was removed, we saw the effect on petrol. Yes, it was majorly on petrol, and that affected every other strata of the economy. But first, after the subsidy removal, petrol became very expensive. And now there's another policy decision on the food pricing, and of course, on transportation. Exchange rate decisions, that was another one. And if it's weakened, which we saw brought about the weaker Naira, as we progress, you get to understand how the Naira became weakened, especially in subsequent editions or episodes of Money and Market. Now, when the exchange rate came on board, the decision came on board, we saw weaker Naira, which invariably affected imported food, medicine, and goods because their prices went up. Now, and of course the government, and if weak, which we already saw that the control policies that they provided were weak. Now, as a result, prices rose faster than income. Now, what this is telling us is that the purchasing power of the local currency, which is the Naira, became very weak. Let's take an example. I'll give you 2 examples. For instance, what 1,000 Naira buys today is far less than last year. All right, let's take another practical example. Bread. What the Naira bought, let's look at the family size bread. If my memory serves me right, as at December 2024, the family bread was sold for about 800 to 900 naira. But today, December 2025, that family bread is being sold for 2,000 naira. Just to tell you how the purchasing power of the naira has gone down. So, what the naira bought for last year, you compare it to what it can buy this year on the same product, it's a little bit higher compared to what it bought last year. That's the decision on pricing of commodities and, of course, on transportation, as it were. Let's go to our second index, or our second factor, and this is on income, jobs, and unemployment. Now, the policymakers, when they came up with the policies, they decide how easy it is for businesses to borrow. Now, in this way, not only to borrow, how to operate, and of course, how to probably hire or recruit into their businesses. What we saw, or what we keep seeing, is high interest rates. Now, for high interest rates, this invariably means that businesses cannot borrow, because when the rates at which for your loans that you want to give out to these businesses, when your interest rate is high, businesses will tend not to borrow. And this invariably will lead to fewer jobs, where we now say that some of these businesses do not recruit. Now, there's also the issue of poor industrial policy. Now, this is coming from the government and, of course, like I said, the policymakers of the society, or the regulators. Now, when you have poor industrial policy, this leads to factories closing down or do not even expanding. Now, we've heard about some companies that have left Nigeria, or probably have wound down or reduced their capacity, as it were. I just want to mention some, like Glasgow Smithkline, known as the GSK. They were a pharmaceutical company. They downsized seriously. Initially, they announced in 2023, after 51 years in Nigeria, doing business in Nigeria, and they stopped local operations, and they actually moved to just distribution model only. We also have P&G, who, the acronym means Procter and Gamble. They were into consumer goods. They also ceased local operation as far back as in December 2023. That's just a few months after Bola Ahmed Tinubu became president of Nigeria. And of course, there's the Unilever, who actually downscaled, exited product lines like home care and, of course, skin cleansing, and also they reduced local presence as part of restructuring. So we can go on and on and on. There's the Sanofi Aventis, who are also into pharmaceuticals, who stopped direct operations and, of course, moved to just distributor-led setup. There is also the Diageo, who was, who were also in beverages, especially for Guinness. They sold their 58% stake in Guinness Nigeria in 2024 as well, shifting ownership to, others as well. So I can go on and talk about, these poor industrial policies that have led factories to either close or downscale. We also look at low investment confidence. With this example I just gave about downscaling and, of course, exit in the market space, definitely investors will not want to come into the economy, right? So this will definitely lead to low investment confidence, which results in companies relocating, like I said earlier on, and of course downsizing. Now, what this invariably means is that many Nigerians work harder, no doubt about that, but they earn less, while young people struggle to find stable jobs. When these companies do not create jobs, how would these young people, have jobs, to go to? All right, let's look at our third factor, which is on small businesses and market traders. So the economic decisions shape survival of small traders. There is the issue of multiple taxes and levies. Like I said, this program is all about money, cost of living, and how the survival economy affects the everyday Nigerian. So in subsequent episodes, we'll also be looking at taxes. Hopefully, the next episode will be looking at the former tax regime. But multiple taxes and levies, these are very common for business, small businesses, and of course, market traders. We have import policies, which affect, sorry, I beg your pardon, poor electricity. Yes, poor electricity leading to high generator costs, because when there's poor electricity, no better power outage, issues, it should definitely lead to high generating costs as it were. All right, before we go on a very quick break, I just want to let us know the effect of this particular index. We have delayed minimum wage adjustments. We have inflation rising faster than salaries, and of course, worker protection is not really there or non-existent. I mean, talking about unions, trade unions, and all that. All right, we go on a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation.
At DSAG Engineering and Services, we anticipate, manage, and deliver. Since 2000, we have been a leading EPC company, ensuring customer satisfaction through quality service and timely delivery. With integrity, proficiency, and innovation at our core, we provide world-class solutions tailored to your needs. From engineering designs and construction to procurement, manpower outsourcing, and maritime supplies, DSAG delivers excellence. Partner with us today. Visit www.dsag.net or call +23 4807 254 8724. DSAG Engineering and Services, anticipate, manage, deliver.
All right, we stopped at number 3 factor, which is on small businesses and market traders. Let's quickly go to our number 4 factor, which is on wages and purchasing power. In this particular factor, we look at salary size alone will never be enough. I mean, your salary can never be enough, because the value of money matters. And what's the value of money right now? Talking about your local currency, it is way, way, way low and weak. So delayed minimum wage adjustments, these are things that are very, very characteristics in this particular factor. We have inflation rising faster than, your pay. And of course, we also talked about weaker work protection, where I also earlier on highlighted, what's it called now? The trade unions that are not really, really effective trying to protect the workers. And what this invariably means is that a salary increase may still feel like there is nothing, like there's a pay cut, in fact, so even if your salary is increased, it will still not be enough to get what you want. Let's quickly go to our number 5 factor, which is on health and education access. Now, spending choices in this particular category determine quality and affordability. Low funding, that will lead to, because the salaries are not enough, they're not high enough, so that's a result of low funding, and this will result in families pay out of their pockets. I mean, whatever you want to buy will, just like each time you bring out money from your pocket, is like you're just punching some holes in your pocket. There's also the issue of brain drain. I mean, it's very, very common with the Nigerian situation, not just because of this administration, but for a while now, for some decades, if not more than 2 decades now. We saw how we've seen fewer doctors in our hospitals, and of course teachers who have left the teaching job here in Nigeria to go for greener pastures outside the country. All right, so there's another issue also on this category, which is weak health insurance coverage. When you go to the civil service and you look at the health insurance scheme, you'll be asking yourself, what is this all for? Why don't you allow me to go spend the money myself instead of deducting that particular amount in the name of health insurance coverage from my salary? Now, what this invariably means is that hospital bills keep pushing families into debt. Yes, because if you don't have enough money, but then you want to go to the hospitals to treat, to check and all that, but is the money commensurate with what you're going for? The answer is no. Then school fees is another issue where it becomes very unaffordable. All right, our next factor is on transport, roads, and power. And this is very, very key to the economy because infrastructure spending, affects daily stress. Definitely, we'll talk about the bad roads in Nigeria, though some state governments are working hard to ensure good roads. But then, because of the bad roads, these affect our vehicles. We have damages to the vehicles. Now, for power supply, of recent, we know how power outages have been. So poor power supply raises cost of living because you have to buy the alternative to the national grid supplying your power, which is on generating sets, or maybe you want to go on solar. It's very expensive. Then we have limited mass transit, which increases transport fares because the state is unable to, make available mass transit lines for people to travel from one place or to the other. It becomes invariably difficult for people to actually travel. And of course, these private lines, the transport fares, the hike in the transport fare is not really, really good for the everyday Nigeria. So what this all translates in this particular factor is that longer commutes, in fact, longer transportation results in high transport costs, and then, of course, less time for family work. All right, our next factor is on poverty, inequality, and survival. The economic choices made by these regulators decide who carries the burden. Okay, now, earlier on I talked about taxes. Yes, these taxes, as it were often hit. The burden is always carried over to the poor more than the rich. Now, that is one of the reasons why we have the new tax reform in Nigeria. We don't want to go deep into all of that. Like I said, as the program continues in our subsequent episodes, we're bringing you up to speed with the analysis of the new tax policy. So in this particular factor, we also have weak welfare systems. We have rural areas being neglected, and it's not really a good thing to neglect the rural communities because you have to bring them up to speed to modernization. Now, what this factor is all about is that more people fall into poverty even while a few benefit. And I will tell you who the few are: the rich. All right, the next factor here is on security and social stability. Well, the economic pressure fuels insecurity. Where there's economic pressure, definitely insecurity will come. I will tell you. As a result of economic pressure, one of the economic pressures are unemployment, and this leads to crime. Where there's no employment, definitely the youths will be susceptible to crime. And you know where I'm going because we have what's it called now, fraudsters everywhere trying to get people to fall, like they used to say, guy man, mugu fall, guy man work, according to our local parlance. All right. There's also the rising poverty, which results into social unrest. Definitely people will take to just to ensure that poverty is not their nickname. Now, what all this factor, these things I just pointed out, what it invariably means is that people spend more on security to safeguard their life, and of course, they live in fear. Who will not? Let's take an example. In your streets, I don't know about you, but in my streets, we pay regular security fees just to safeguard our compounds, our streets, and all that. But is that really enough? So people pay for security. Even at that, they live in fear. The next factor here is trust, planning, and the hope for the future. Is there hope for the future? Now, always know that when you do something, consistency matters a lot. Policy reversals destroy confidence. And I will tell you this, the government or the regulators of the economy, they are very good at the government and regulators of the economy. They are very good at policy reversals, and this destroy confidence. Now, this also brings about naira instability, your local currency. It brings about that local currency instability, which also discourages you from saving. I mean, when your local currency is really weak, would you want to save? The answer is no. There's also the uncertainty, comes along when it comes to planning. You stop planning because, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's one of the reasons. So what all this invariably also means is that people rush to buy dollars, for instance, especially because as your naira weakens, the dollar, the value of the dollar increases. So people go for foreign currencies against the local currency. They hoard goods where there's uncertainty, when they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or they live day to day. Invariably, what that means is that they do not save. So put in simple words, in all that we've been talking about, is that decision from the economy makers or the economy regulators of the economy, regulatory economy and the government, decisions made will decide whether the ordinary Nigerians are coping or suffering. Now, let me give you the good side of the decision. If it is good, it will bring about stability in prices. It will bring about jobs and business growth. It will bring about affordability of essentials, like your food, your water, your power and all that. But when the decisions are bad, my goodness, this is what is going to happen. There will be high cost of living, which we are seeing already. There will be job losses. Yes, we've seen companies reduce their strength. And of course, there will be daily hardship. It's all common. All right. So this is just the appraisal of the market, as it were, just a snapshot of how things are really, really going on for when it comes to the economy deciders, those who decide the economy, the regulators and the government, and in relation to the Nigerians, as it were, the businesses, workers, and what have you. Do have this a lot. Earlier on I talked about how the purchasing power of the naira cannot give you exactly what it could buy last year, just 12 months ago. Now, prices in Nigeria change frequently because the overall cost of goods and services is increasing at a fast pace. Inflation is one of the reasons. Now, prices tend to change, and this time they always go up. It's very rare to see how Nigerians, when the price is fixed, go up. It's very rare to see how Nigerians, when the price is fixed up, when the price is fixed, in a couple of years to come, the price comes down. I think the only area we have seen so far, but for me, it's still not a reduction, is in fuel. Compared to 2024, I know how we used to see queues in fuel stations, but December 2025, I'm not sure I saw any fuel stations that had queues. So I think that's a positive. But what I said is like it's not even existing was because before the removal of the fuel subsidy, we know how much a liter of petrol was and how much it is now. So that's why I said what I said. But let's just leave all of that, because when general price level of goods and services increases, this is what is known as inflation. So Nigeria's recent inflation numbers, let's look at the statistics. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, inflation reached about 34.80% in December 2024. Take note of this percentage, 34.80% in December 2024, meaning prices were about 35% higher than the previous year, which was 2023. Now, this followed rising cost of food, transport, and energy. All of these I just mentioned, cost of food, transport, and energy, all rose like, up to 400%, if I'm not mistaken. Now, in early 2025, after rebasing, statistical rebasing, there was this ease in the economy that brought about 24.48%. That was in January 2025. Remember, the previous one was 34.80% in December of 2024. And now in January, it reduced, it came down to 24.48%. In March 2025, inflation hit 24.23%. That was about 2.25% reduction, indicating sustained upward price pressure nationwide. Now you'll be asking, but the percentage dropped a little, so why is there upward price? I'll tell you, just listen. By July 2025, inflation was about 21.8%, another reduction, but food inflation was around 22.7%. Now, all these statistics were coming from the National Bureau of Statistics, not my own statistics. In September 2025, just a couple of months ago, inflation slowed to about 18.02%. Remember, in the month of July, it was 22.7%. And now in September 2025, just a couple of months later, it came to 18.02%. But that still means prices were rising faster than most incomes. The income fixed. I mean, let's assume states that said they were going to pay, they'll be paying the minimum wage of 70,000. There was no increment in your wages, but look at how the prices of food keeps going up. Now, in November 2025, inflation fell to 14.45%. That's like less than 4%. Yes, less than 4% decrease from the previous 18.02%, and that was in September. So a couple of months later, we have 14.45% in the issue, talking about that particular matter. So, but again, like I said, this is still high compared to many economies. So what this means is that even as inflation eases, prices continue to rise. They continue to rise, just at slightly lower rates. Okay, but remember, the headline inflation still stood at 14 to about 24%, which means that goods are significantly more expensive than a year ago. All right, we'll take a break here, and we'll be looking at other factors on why we have price changes in Nigeria.
At DSAG Engineering and Services, we anticipate, manage, and deliver. Since 2000, we have been a leading EPC company, ensuring customer satisfaction through quality service and timely delivery. With integrity, proficiency, and innovation at our core, we provide world-class solutions tailored to your needs. From engineering designs and construction to procurement, manpower outsourcing, and maritime supplies, DSAG delivers excellence. Partner with us today. Visit www.dsag.net or call +23 4807 254 8724. DSAG Engineering and Services, anticipate, manage, deliver.
Right, and our second, sorry. All right, our second take on this matter, well, we already talked about the first one, which is on high inflation, on why prices change. The second factor we're going to be looking at is on prices, food prices. Well, on this particular one, when food prices rise, overall prices tend to rise too. Now, we're going to be looking at some statistics, as it were, as well. We'll look at July 2025. Food inflation was about 22.74% year on year. That's when you compare that to what happened in July 2024. And that's far above global averages. And that was much more higher than wage growth. Like I said earlier on, there is not much when it comes to wage, especially we look at the workers from the civil service where they say they have minimum wage of 70,000 naira, for instance, but there is no growth in that particular aspect. But then again, you look at prices, food prices plummeting, as you want to say. Now, in 2024, food inflation also soared nearly to 40%, driven by staple foods such as rice, yam, fish, and of course, grains. Because food is such a large part of household spending, any big jump in prices definitely will affect inputs or cost of production change. So, let's look at how this reflects in some of the, how will I put it now, in some of the things we see in Nigeria. We'll look at raw materials, for instance, and production costs. You know, fuel prices definitely affect transport and electricity. Yeah, as a result of, remember, the fuel subsidy removal. Now, that fuel subsidy removal affected transport and, of course, electricity costs, where these are passed on to consumers. The burden was actually passed on to consumers via higher prices of for goods and services. Now, the basic inputs here, like rice, maize, in fact, poultry, feed, they also experience rise in prices because of poor local production and higher import costs. So, like I said earlier on, when you look at the statistics we've given so far from November 2024, we kept seeing the statistics going down, the percentage going down, but inflation slows statistically. Even at that, many prices remain high and continue climbing overall. Like I said, because inflation, because that's the notion that every Nigerian, the ordinary Nigerian, look at, the notion that they always believe that as long as inflation goes down, prices are supposed to go down. Well, it doesn't happen that way, because many prices remain high and continue to climb higher as well. And now most persons will be saying, why is that happening? Why is it that, in quotes, in Nigeria, iron floats in water? I'll leave you to answer that one. I'm not in the mood for that one. Let's look at another another index in this particular matter of why prices change in the Nigerian economy. Inflation is a key factor in this particular matter, because inflation can slow, but prices don't fall. You know, I've hammered on that one before, that a common confusion, like I said, is the thinking that inflation slowing means prices go down. Well, let's take an example statistically. In September 2025, just a couple of months ago, the inflation rate slowed to 18% in September, about 18%. But that means prices were still rising. If you remember back then, what you bought in the month of, let's say, April, rose in terms of price in the month of September. But just not that this time around, the prices, unlike in previous years, where you see the sharp increase in prices, but this time around, it's like a gradual process. It's not that fast, you know, when it comes to the pricing. So people often feel prices haven't come down, even if inflation slows down. You know, that's the mentality, like I said earlier on, because inflation does not measure rate of increase. That's one thing about inflation. I beg your pardon, it measures rate of increase and not the actual price. You know, because actual price decline is not the business of inflation. What inflation looks at is the rate. That's what it measures, the rate of increase. Now, let's look at some structural reasons why Nigeria experienced price changes. Very structural. The first one is on currency depreciation. Now, it will take an economist to break this particular aspect down. But to you, especially to the ordinary Nigerians who want to understand this, I will just break it down a little. A weaker naira, or your weaker currency, makes imported goods more expensive. So when your currency, your local currency, weakens, you know, when the value of especially your naira goes down, goods that you're going to be importing from abroad would definitely be, you know, expensive, like importing food, manufacturing inputs, fuel, machinery costs. These would definitely skyrocket in terms of price and in relation to your naira. Then there's the angle of high food inflation. Now, with food inflation consistently in the region of, or the range of the 20 to 40% in recent years, staple foods become much more expensive. I mean, There's no two way about that to discuss that one. It's really, really high up there in terms of food inflation in Nigeria. The next one is on energy and transport cost. Yeah, energy and transport costs, where fuel and energy changes influence the cost of transport and production. And of course this one, when these go up, talking about fuel and energy, when they go up, definitely consumers' prices will follow. There's also the issue of rising core prices. Now, like I said, some of these things is only the economists that can understand very well, but I'll just break it a little down here. There's the core inflation. We have the general inflation. That's what it invariably means. But in this aspect, we are excluding food and energy. Now, the core inflation has been above about 20% at times, meaning that general prices beyond food are also rising. All right, so this is where we'll now ask the next question, because we've been talking about how prices change, how the economic decisions, how it has affected the everyday Nigerian, not only the households, but the businesses and maybe small-scale businesses and traders, as it were, and other strata of the society. The next question we want to be asking ourselves is, in all of this, who is the most affected in these economic decisions? For the economic decisions, they do not actually affect everyone equally. This you will understand when we talk about taxation, all right? Because definitely we'll look at that in subsequent episodes. But let's just look at how some groups feel the impact immediately, because they are the ones that bear the brunt. And we also look at how their spending, their savings, and of course what they earn bring about how they are the ones that bear the brunt. We'll talk about those who really are most affected. Let's start from the low-income households. Now, these are the ones that are most affected, the low-income households. Here, we are talking about minimum wage earners, civil servants, daily wage workers, unemployed households, and of course, these guys I've just talked about now, these segments, these sectors I just talked about now, spend about 60 to 80% of their income on food and transport, the essentials. Okay, they have little or no savings, which I talked earlier on. They have no edge against inflation. They cannot control inflation. And how does these economic decisions now, how do these economic decisions affect these households? Now, let's look at it. Fuel price hikes. The moment we have fuel increment in price, the low income loses out value fast. Your income becomes like as if it's not there. Because remember, these are people who have fixed income. So the moment inflation comes, the moment fuel price hikes come in, these guys, their monies is just like almost as worthless. Now, there's the issue of inflation. Inflation brings about losses in value, and that comes very, very fast. Value of the currency. Weak social protection. We talked about this concerning the workers, where they have trade unions that are not really protective of them, not really fighting for them properly. And this brings about no buffer, that is, no protection, like I said earlier on, no form of fighting for them to have increase in salary. Like I said also, that even when you increase the salaries, it's as if nothing happened in relation to the value of your currency. Now, this results to hunger, debt, school dropouts, definitely, because your money would not be able to pay the fees for your children if there are like 4 of them in the university, especially in state-owned university or private universities. You know what I'm talking about. And of course, there's poor healthcare access as a result. Let's also look at informal traders and micro businesses. Well, in this particular line, we have market women and men, we have kiosk owners, of course your POS operators are there, your roadside service providers are there, and all of these are also affected. Why are they affected? Why are they the most affected? Why is it that these, because like I said, there are many of them. We have the rich in the society, we'll come to that, the big businesses, the small scale businesses, but why are these ones I just mentioned now, you know, are the most affected? They have thin profit margins. Their profit margins now they also depend on cash flow. They really cannot do without cash flow. They have no access to cheap loans, you know, because of their fixed income. So these also impact on economic decisions. The naira depreciation, for instance, not be able to buy what they need to buy. There is also, remember, I talked about the informal traders now, micro businesses, the small scale businesses. Those are the guys I'm talking about now. And as a result, there is the multiple taxes that they are faced with, and of course levies from the local government levels, and multiple taxes from the federal government, and also from states governments as well. Now, there's also, like I said, high interest rates. This discourage them from going to take a loan in whatever financial institutes or institutions that they want to go take loans. So there'll be no credit So there'll be no credit for them. This will now result to higher prices, lower sales, and of course business closures for these small businesses. Let's also look at salary earners on fixed income, how they are also affected. Now, in this category, we are looking at civil servants, we are looking at teachers, we are looking at low-level private sector staff. We're looking also at pensioners. Now, why does it affect them? Salary moves fast, right? Yeah, from your hand, from the your company to the workers, it's so fast when it comes. And of course, when it comes to the workers, they in turn want to pay bills here and there. So real income falls every month. That's what I was trying to say. At the end of the month, that is for those companies or establishments that pay at the end of the month, the income comes to these workers at every month. Transport and rent will consume such. That is, if these workers, they pay rent monthly. Okay, so if they are the type of workers that pay their rent monthly, then definitely when the income comes, it will consume. It will just take, you know, the chunk of the salary or the income. Now, savings definitely are wiped out because you can't save. When you pay for your transportation to work every month, and then you pay your monthly rent, definitely what will be left won't be enough for you. We've not even talked about the essentials like food, you know, providing food for your family now. We're not even talking about that one now. So how would you save is almost non-existent for the workers. As a result, they'll be these guys will be working, the workers will be working, but they become poorer every year. Now let's look at SMEs, small and medium enterprises. These guys, they struggle a lot. They struggle to high power costs, to forex volatility, to policy uncertainty. Now, these are things that will measure. If it's positive, will be positive for them, for the small scale business as well. But negative, like I just talked about, higher power costs, not a good one for the small scale businesses. Now, the impact is that there'll be delayed expansion. Definitely when you are faced with such challenges, you will never expand. There's the time where it will be necessary for the establishment to lay off staffs. There'll be reduced competition. I mean, how do you want to even go compete with your competitor when, you know, things are not really working well for you. You are fighting foreign exchange that's not in favor of you, of your business. The cost of powering your business in terms of power, not depending on the national grid, want to depend on fueling your generating set and all that. And of course, policy uncertainty today, the government makes a policy, tomorrow they reverse it and all that. So you are not too sure of your businesses as it were, as in how it's going to grow. So as a result, there'll be job losses and there'll be slower economic growth for that particular business. Let's now look most affected by these economic policies, as it were. Now let's look at those who are sort of protected. Well, should I say the former tax regime would always tell you that no one is protected. But in a way, when you look at what was going on in years gone by, decades and what have you, you see that it is the low income earners that suffer more. The issue of VAT, value-added tax, and all that. We'll also talk about all that one as well, how it affects the low income earners. So we'll just take one moment off to catch our breath. When we return, we'll look at deeply into who is least affected when it comes to economic decisions in Nigeria.
At DSAG Engineering and Services, we anticipate, manage, and deliver. Since 2000, we have been a leading EPC company, ensuring customer satisfaction through quality service and timely delivery. With integrity, proficiency, and innovation at our core, we provide world-class solutions tailored to your needs. From engineering designs and construction to procurement, manpower outsourcing, and maritime supplies, DSAG delivers excellence. Partner with us today. Visit www.dsag.net or call +23 4807 254 8724. DSAG Engineering and Services, anticipate, manage, deliver.
All right, so last we talked about the small and medium enterprises, how they struggle to meet up with high power cost, forex volatility, and of course policy uncertainty. We're talking about who were most affected, as it were. Now, before that breather, we also said that when we come back, we'll be looking at the least affected, like those who, in quotes, are being protected by, in quotes, the regulators of the economy. Let's look at the high income earners. These guys, they can hedge with their assets and dollars. You know, they invest in dollars, and of course they have these assets that they can use to, wage any form of burden that will want to come their way. They're also politically connected individuals. I don't want to, I will not be going deeply into this because of to contracts with the regulators and the government, as they were. They also have this access to the forex exchange, the FX, and of course on some, in quotes, classified information, these politically connected individuals. Then we have large corporations that can pass costs to consumers. They don't want to bear the burden. They don't want to carry the burden of the costs, so they push that to their pricing methods. They put the cost on the prices of which the consumers or the customers will have to bear, especially when they buy or they purchase the goods from the large corporations. The large corporations actually have access to capital, so they can go to any of these big financial institutions and get credits, to run their businesses as against small scale businesses. So the economic decisions in Nigeria hit the poor first. That's where we want to really hammer on. The informal sector hardest, and then the rich last. So that's how it is. It is the poor first that the economic decisions hit, And then the informal sector, they are hit the hardest, and then they reach the last. So in that trajectory, that's why policy design matters. Without protection, inequality widens, and of course, hardship deepens. We'll see how the new tax regime, that was passed recently by the National Assembly, would bring about equality, and of course, take away hardship and take away protection from the rich folks, to bring that equality when it comes to taxes. All right, and as we are slowly winding down to the end of our program today, let's look at, because we'll be talking about challenges, we'll be talking about how these economic decisions have been affecting households, traders, small-scale businesses. We talked about how prices also influence, a day-to-day running, of course, on the survival economy. We will also now be looking at strategies to cope with in these difficult times. I mean, how can the government help the economy, in fact, help the everyday Nigerian, not just the everyday Nigerian, the workers, the traders, the businesses, and how to encourage investments in the economy. Let's start from households, because the advice here would be to track your daily spending, not monthly guesses. There are some persons that will just say, okay, this is my guess for the month, this is how I'm going to do stuff. I remember growing up, while I was in school, as a banking and finance student, we were taught some things on how to track our records, in order for us to know if by the time we track our records for a particular month, the following month, at the end of that month, when we, sum up our financial activities, we'll be able to tell which and what is taking much of our income or much of our monies, as it were, and we'll work on it the following month. So you track your daily spending, not monthly guesses. And of course, this reduces small but frequent costs, like I just gave an example of while I was in school. One thing is, if you really want to cut down or you want to track your expenditures, you look at impulse spending, okay? And that will help you a lot when you track your records. Snacks, impulse transport, I mean, where you're not supposed to go, that will not give you any positives. You just embark on a journey and just go. And when you come back, you'll be regretting why I did more. Now, another good advice I would give is cook more as a household, because we're looking at households now. Cook more. Buy in bulk with trusted neighbors. And of course, a small discipline saves thousands monthly. And when you discipline yourself financially, definitely, you will save a lot. So this is for the household. You control your cash leakage. The second thing for household is to protect income value. Protect your income. Protect the value of your income. Definitely, you want to convert part of your savings into non-Naira assets where possible. That is, if you have to, but we look at the possibility of you, like I said, cook more. Don't go to, it's not like I'm discouraging those restaurants from cooking and all that, but if you really want to save, you want to go cook more, you buy your stuff yourself. You want to buy food items like your gari, your rice, your oil. You want to buy them, you want to stock them at home. And of course, you want to avoid, some of these spending recklessly. And of course, avoid holding idle cash for long. There are some persons, like I talked about, impulse spending. There are some persons, cash at hand or cash in hand is like, so I have money like this, especially when the money is bulky in your pocket, when it's voluminous in your pocket, you think, especially when it's in the lower denomination, you think you have more money and you want to be spending. Before you know it, the money is gone. And that's the thing about, I talked about earlier on, the purchasing power of the Naira, very, very weak. So when you hold, for instance, cash of about 10,000 Naira, and if it's in the one of the lowest denomination, you think you have enough money. But by the time you spend, by the time you buy 1, 2 things, is gone. So you want to avoid holding such idle cash for long, because inflation is not your friend. It will punish that cash in your hand. It will punish it by just disappearing into the thin air. All right, so let's also look at another advice I want to give is on multiple income streams. Very low risk. Don't take all of your hard-earned money, your salary, to go into that multiple streams. Like you can go for weekend or evening hustles, like we used to say. You can go for weekend hustles. You can go for evening hustles. I know of places somewhere in some places in Port Harcourt and in Lagos where you can do weekend hustles, especially where you are the civil servant. You work from Monday to Friday, so your Saturday, Sunday, you can go do your hustle. Or even as a worker in the evening, if you work from if you are a 9 to 5 worker, you know that by 6, 7 you can also go do your evening hustle. The evening hustle can be in you being a tutor to some kids at home. You can even do deliveries, and you can also go on the POS, being a POS operator. So skill and income, these are very, very important. So those are just one of my advice for you, the household. And of course, one income, like they used to say, is never enough. You can ask one of my colleagues here who is very, very good with money. I don't want to make mention of her name. I wish she was Igbo. I would have said, she's really, really in it, because Igbos, they are very, very good traders. That's on a lighter note. Anyway, so another advice I would give is to reduce transport pressure, like I talked earlier on. But this one is going to make you laugh a little because I will advise, and I've seen guys do that even here in this town. They use bicycles for short distances where possible. I've seen guys who even go to work with bicycles. Okay, another advice I would give is that because of your income now, the household, the workers who have a fixed income, you can relocate closer to your workspace. All right, if rent and transport is cheaper, kind of, so you can relocate closer to your workspace. Okay, let's go to small businesses and traders. Now, those advice I just dropped now are for households or for workers. Let's go for small businesses and traders. The first thing I would say is price smart, not emotional. Don't ever get emotional when it comes to pricing. Okay, so do always adjust prices gradually, not in panic. Anyway, I'll get to that point about talking about panic buying by the consumers or by the customers. Then reduce package sizes instead of big price jump. So instead of you to just increase your price so abruptly, so immediately, so urgently, gradually increase your prices. And instead of packaging your stuff just to attract people, and when you do that, sometimes you tend to push customers away. So instead of that, reduce package sizes, but then keep your prices a little bit considerate for the survival of your business. Because survival, the customer will always argue with you that your prices are definitely higher, and they will want to go do business with other persons that they think have lower prices compared to yours. So your survival depends on the customer. Like they always say, the customers are always right? Okay, so my second advice is for you to lower your operating costs. It's very, very important. If it's possible, you can share generating set with another business owner around you, instead of owning a generating set and you powering the generating set, and that could be very, very costlier. Or if you have the means, you can even switch to solar, which is very, very common now. You can switch to solar for small loads. If you have small loads that you can use to run your business, then you can go solar. But if it's you have mighty load inputs, then definitely share with. I've seen that anyway when you go to marketplaces, especially at the Alaba International Market in Lagos. You see how these small businesses, and traders, they share generating sets. Even I've seen in Warri, in PTI, in some business centers as well. The next thing I would say is you also buy inventory directly from source if possible. So just go to the source, and that's very, very helpful when you go straight to the source instead of going through bottlenecks that we experience with these middlemen. There are always bottlenecks. There are always this stifling of you getting your products, and of course you want to, because you are buying from their hand, you want to increase your price. So to avoid that, why not go direct to the companies? I've seen small traders, small businesses as well, in some marketplaces go straight to the companies, maybe in the east or in the west part of Nigeria, and they get their products directly. And when you do business with such persons, you know that such businesses, you know that you're having a bargain as a customer. Another advice I would give is formalize selectively. Formalize selectively. Register your business only when it is necessary. And when I say only when it is necessary, it's when you know that the benefit you are getting from the business outweighs your costs. Now, there's this talk about register your business with CAC, blah, 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 blah. Some persons are just jumping at it. They are not even looking at what they are offering and what they are getting in return. And they find themselves trapped in what not ought to have been. Okay? So another thing is use bank accounts for credibility. There are some persons who want to use their accounts for debt. Don't use your accounts for debt, please. Use your accounts for credibility. Okay, in that way, customers will always, especially when you go to the source, they will always want to do business. So, like I said, use bank accounts for credibility and not for debt. So you could see that there are so many of them, but time will not allow me to, go straight into all of the things I actually want to talk about. But what I would say finally is that for Nigerians, survival now depends on discipline, adaptability, and community. You've got to be very, very disciplined on how you go about your income, how you want to spend your income, and you have to adapt to every strategy that the regulators will want to pour at you. And for the government, people don't need promises. They need stable prices, cheap power, jobs, creation of jobs, and of course protection from these economic shocks. All right, this is where I will draw the curtains today on the program Money and Market, and we have been talking about the effects of economic decisions on Nigerians. Do well to join us again on another beautiful and educative episode on Money and Market on TVM. You can follow us, you can follow TVM on our social handles, follow, like, and share, and we'll be so glad. And of course, reach out to us. We'll be so glad that you followed and reached out to us. Once again, my name is Fred O'Neill. I'll see you again pretty soon.
This is TVM. TVM delivers breaking stories, global headlines, and the moments that matter. From exciting sports action to exclusive local events, we keep you connected. Celebrate our culture, people, and voices with powerful documentaries and inspiring stories. Experience premium entertainment, from trending music to urban lifestyle and beyond. Grow your spirit with life-changing messages and uplifting perspectives. Lead the way with bold conversations, fresh ideas, and thought-provoking shows. Wherever you are, whenever you want, watch TVM on all your devices. TVM, your world, your network.
Welcome to Dursag Engineering and Services Limited. A trusted name in the oil and gas industry, proudly registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission since the year 2000. We hold several specialized permits with the Department of Petroleum Resources, are accredited with service and product codes by NIPEX, certified by Dun & Bradstreet, and proudly ISO 9001:2015 certified. Our head office is strategically located at 43 Airport Road, Warri, Delta State, Nigeria. At DERSAG, our areas of expertise cut across critical sectors, including manpower sourcing and supply, both local and highly trained expatriate personnel. Engineering services across civil, electrical, instrumentation, and mechanical works. Construction and fabrication works. Specialized procurement and supply. Operations and maintenance services. And integrated marine services, delivering supply boats, crew boats, tugboats, barges, houseboats, and speed boats. We are proud partners to some of the industry's leading players, including NNPC and its subsidiaries, Seplat Petroleum, First Hydrocarbon Nigeria Limited, ND Western, Saipem Contracting Nigeria Limited, and Lee Engineering and Construction, among others. Over the years, we have successfully executed manpower, EPC, and marine support projects with a strong record of excellence. At DERSAG Engineering, we are committed to quality, safety, and timely delivery, ensuring that every project meets and exceeds expectations. DERSAG Engineering and Services Limited, your trusted partner in delivering world-class engineering and energy solutions.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Hey, my God! Look at your neighbor, say, neighbor! But I'm not like the sweet pass. But I'm not like, where my people? But I'm not like, you can come down. But I'm not like the sweet pass. Say, but I'm not like the sweet pass. But I'm not like the sweet pass. But I'm not, receive a song. You say, Jesus, you too much. What you've done in my life? What you've done in my life, I can't imagine. Jesus, you too much. Jesus, you too much. I get your whistle, I get your whistle. When I think of Jesus. When I think of where you brought me from, oh Jesus. Jump, 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 jump.
We're gonna give God some good praise in here. Everybody, let me hear you scream. Are you ready? Let me just see you. Who does this together? Jesus, you you are alive. And because you live, we live. Thank you, Jesus. Casting down my crowns before the living God. Casting down my crowns before the living God. I'm pouring out my own before the Holy One. I'm pouring out my own before the Holy One. Now I need you to just raise your hand and worship the King of Glory. Our God is great and greatly to be praised. There is none like him. Yes, our God is great. Thank you, Jesus. I'm casting down my crown, pouring out my own. I'm pouring out my own. laying down my fears. I don't have anyone but you, Lord. I'm laying down my doubts. I'm pouring out my own before everyone. Can we raise it? Just the voices. You are, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I need you to raise it. You are the living God. Yes, you are. Sing Yahweh, the living God. Yahweh. Yahweh. Sing Yahweh one more time. Yahweh, the living God. Yahweh, the living God. Yahweh, the living God. Yahweh, the living God. Yahweh. Somebody give the Lord a shout.
You will never fail, God. Oh, dear Lord, though my life has not been without ups and downs, sometimes I feel lonely when they'll turn abandoned. I realize that's you.